Hello and welcome to my brand new channel, my brand new idea. And I'm here watching The Expanse, for the second time, kind of, sort of. Yeah, so I stopped The Expanse and we're in season 5 when they went to Baltimore. I kind of got triggered by when I realized they'd skip Amos's book, and I stopped there. And I wanted to go back and finish season 5 and also start season 6. And I thought, hey, I rag on so many people when I'm sitting in the YouTube comments, or I rag on so many people in the Reddit or in Discords about how much I love the books. I have went through all the books and novellas many, many, many times each, except for the last book, which I've only read the once, or listened to the once. So yeah, I decided, hey, let's watch through the show again to catch up. Let's talk about the show. Let's do the old react. And let's just help people understand the differences between the books and the show. So I'm going to do a lot of pausing and referencing the audiobooks, and I'll put the audio in, and I'll go like that, or whatever I do. We'll kind of talk about the changes and also just enjoy the show. I mean, this is probably one of the weirder reactions that are out there for somebody who's already seen all the show and the books. But hey, I got this idea from a fellow YouTuber who does he went through the Harry Potter series, and then now he's doing a reaction to the books where he's doing like one chapter at a time. He's talking about it and whatnot. So I figured, hey, best of both. Let's see if I can convince some people that they should really read the books, because I love the show. I really do. Especially things like casting. There's so many things that the show did so well. But a lot was cut. A lot was changed. And as much as I love the show, and I'd give it, a 9.5 out of 10 or whatever, very high rating, I'd say that rating would probably be ruined by me comparing it to the books. Same as Harry Potter. I feel the same way there. So I figured I'd start this little series, see how it goes, see how you like it, see how I like it. And yeah, let's get into The Expanse. Let's see if I can teach anyone something, or maybe, hopefully, you can teach me a little something in the old comments and whatnot. So, here we go. Miss Tipper, Naomi Gata, she might not be, 6'5" or 6'6" or something like Naomi is, but hey, that's okay with me. A lot of the belters had to be changed for that reason, right? Oh, I love this intro. I haven't seen it in so long. Oh, there she is. Queen! Queen! Yes, Queen! Oh, I love her so much. I'm sure I gush so much over her. I don't care. She gives off big mommy energy, and I don't give a fuck. Here she is, Miss Mal. They do zero gravity in this show so well. I know it's all wires, right? They're all just on wires and whatnot. Okay, so I'm gonna pause it here to talk about this. It's a weird freeze frame on Julie, but hey. Yeah, one thing you really don't seem to get a hold of in the show is just how long she's in this box for. I think it's she's in there for 4 days, I know, at the start, where she's being completely silent. She's hearing the noises about her and whatnot. And she's being relatively silent because she got locked in there, and they were told, lock her in there. If she makes any noise, shoot her. So she sits in this thing. She hears, people get beaten up and all sorts of noises go on throughout the ship. I know she found some water, and she found, I think it was like loamy water in a suit's water reservoir. And she ends up like peeing on the floor and trying not to slip in her pee, because she's there for at least 4 days at the start. She doesn't get out, I think, till the 6th day. I think it's the 6th day she gets out. But yeah, this is the weirdest thing about, I guess, the translation from books to the show, especially for The Expanse, because it's a space show. There's a lot, the biggest probably change in the show if I remember correctly, is just that the amount of time between almost every event is shortened so much, just to make it all work better for TV. I think she was in here for 4 days. Then eventually she started trying to break out. I think she started trying to break out on the 6th day. Once she heard some noises, she was going to shout when she heard people going by. Then she decided to listen, and it turns out it was somebody on her crew who was being kicked out of a locker. She stayed silent after that, and then a couple of days later, which I believe was the 6th day, she no longer hears any noise when she wakes up. And so she thinks, okay, shit's weird. I've got to break out. Anyway, let's go. It's shot so well, though. They do. The visual effects team, I love them so much. There it is, the Scopuli that started it all. The ship that shot the first bullet. Oh no. She picks up a wrench also. It's when she leaves in the books too. The wrench is what she picks up getting ready to smack a couple heads before they kill her. I don't think she ever passed any floating suits, although I'm 100% sure she didn't pass any floating suits. She didn't see a single person or any sign of life at all. There it is. The blue goo. And there's the setup. I'm gonna pause this one more time. I don't know why they made this change. I mean, it's not all the changes are for their own reason, right? I'm never gonna understand it. I'm not a show guy. I don't make shows. I'm not a director. What the fuck do I know? I'm a rando. But at least the end of Julie's first chapter of the book, I think, was a lot scarier than that. I'm gonna edit in like 20-second clip of the audio of the ending there, but I think the way they ended that was much scarier. What she walked in and saw was definitely a lot weirder than seeing that. But hey.
The fusion reactor dominated the central space. Something was wrong with it. Where she expected to see readouts, shielding, and monitors, a layer of something like mud seemed to flow over the reactor core. Slowly, Julie floated toward it, one hand still on the ladder. The strange smell became overpowering. The mud caked around the reactor had structure to it like nothing she'd seen before. Tubes ran through it, like veins or airways. Parts of it pulsed. Not mud, then. Flesh. An outcropping of the thing shifted toward her. Compared to the whole, it seemed no larger than a toe, a little finger. It was Captain Darren's head. "Help me," it said.
Stripped it away for themselves.
The story is as old as the show, as old as the world. The Belter's getting fucked. What a surprise.
But the immense wealth and resources
These shots are great. Although all the shots of this green room here throughout the show, I think it's like done 1 or 2 more times. Dog shit. Look at these shots. Everything's just... Love it. It's a great speech. It's a great speech. But I think, especially, I think in the first season, I think almost zero of what happens to Miller and Havelock is in the books. I think their whole story, at least on the series, is completely changed. A lot of it for a lot of things, but...
People get killed for a wrong look around here. Traitor to my people. Man, we got work to do.
So, I love the speech. I love the little OPA riling them up. It's a great speech. The OPA has always done this well. Not this dude. Brando, not in the books, but hey, let's say he's the long lost grandson of Anderson Dawes. Yeah, Miller's story changes so much. I don't think none of this interaction happened. I don't think there were never any, at least at this point, there were never any tensions on series because of this. I think most of Miller's story in what we'd call the first episode was him, it starts the same with the Lady of the Night as well, and Havelock, where they meet her, and they try and find out what happened to the dude who got jumped. I know they mention a forgotten arm. It's like the punch you don't see coming.
Bomi he didn't see. Forgotten arm. Forgotten fucking arm, yeah.
In the show. He was trying to track down this criminal, and it turns out that a bunch of smaller, non-affiliated criminals had attacked this Golden Bow, which is one of the larger gangs, dude. And then he just ran and fled, and no one ever saw him again. And Miller has to deal with a lot, at least in the first book, before he leaves series, trying to figure out what happened to all the gangs on the series, because they've all kind of just vanished, along with some other things, so we'll get to later. But yeah, it's very interesting how they built Miller and Havelock a whole new story. Particularly Havelock, they kind of turned him into like, I don't know the name for those characters who know nothing and are like the blank slate, so they have to be explained everything, so they can teach the viewer. The show does do that more than the books, which is okay. But yeah, this is probably the most obvious example of it, at least right now.
Got an arm, okay?
Got an arm, yeah.
That was his name, Boomy, the guy he was looking for. Again, the Forgotten Arms, the one you don't see coming. I believe this one described it as looking like a dance number, which Miller explains to Havelock is like when a kind of mid-range gang dude hires a bunch of nobodies to attack them, so he can beat them up and kind of prove oh yeah, I'm the big beefy man, give me some more respect on the streets and stuff. But yeah, he actually ran from the fight and was not seen again, so this is where Miller's like, what's up?
What does she mean, forgotten arm?
Oh, never mind,
You never see coming.
they're referencing the shot. It's a boxing term, I believe.
You, never gonna pass for a belter. The time they look at you, they're always gonna see Earth.
Coming from a guy dressed like an earther.
Yeah. So this is probably a big part of the books too. At least, yeah, the start of the books for Havelock is Havelock's having this issue where Havelock's from Earth. He spent quite a lot of time. I think he only spent about a year after he was trained on Earth, and then he spent a lot of his time on orbital stations and on Mars, just working as a police person. And when he came out here to series, which is by far the furthest part he's been from the sun, yeah, he's very shocked because he'd think like, oh yeah, I'm not really an Earther, or I've spent some time on Mars and orbital stations. Earth, Mars, there's a whole bunch of beef, they're different. And Miller has to explain to him, no, this far from the sun, you're all the same thing over there. We think all of you is the same group, and you're all kind of, you're never going to really escape this image that of yourself as an Earther here. Yeah.
Take your OPA bullshit.
This is some very Miller behavior.
Wait for the revolution and all the rest of the victims.
Why don't you guys,
So I'm going to pause it here. Miller has, as I think everyone who's watched it knows, Miller has a lot of issues with finding a home. He has never really felt like a belter, and obviously he can't really fall into any other group. He's not part of the OPA in any sense. He's never really, he's never really felt like a belter and never felt like home. Obviously this part of the show, again, this is all, I think, completely made up from the books. None of it is in there at all. It's probably just a show about the difference between the bodies and whatnot in belters, and showing how Miller is one and whatnot. Yeah, this is a big problem for the show. Like, you can't cast like all these extras and they all have to be like 6'7". Even Miller is supposed to be 6'2" or 6'3" or whatever. Like, they're all supposed to be incredibly tall because they're belters, and it's kind of an issue. So this is probably their way of going, yeah, they've all got it, let's just put it away from now, for obvious reasons. But yeah, it's still a great scene. Miller is very Miller. He does a great job. Mr. the Punisher is a great Miller. What a surprise. Miller's very much like the Punisher, to be honest.
Lunch break's over. Any laws against beating up suspects?
No laws in
Lost in
series.
series.
Just cops.
Just cops.
I love that quote. One of my favorite quotes in the whole show. Turns out in the books, I'd only listened to this part yesterday. I was re-listening to it all before this. In the books, he never actually said just cops. He said just police, which sounds really weird to me now thinking about it. Just cops sounds way better as a line, but yeah, it's no laws in series, just police in the books. Obviously, this place is wild, the wild West. There really isn't. There's no oversight. It's kind of the police just do what they want to do, and that's how justice gets done. You do what you got to do to keep the numbers down, keep crime down, and they don't really care this way or the other.
New contract.
Weird place to pause, but so she's adding some liquid to her. I don't know the name. Like an air. It's not an air purifier. It's like an air. You know the things. The machines you put the essential oil in makes things smell like that. So in the books you learn that basically everyone has this. Like it's kind of built into every room, particularly homes, and people can kind of choose what smells they want to get piped into it. I know that Miller, at least at this point in the show, has it completely basic. He has it just smelling like clean air, which comes with a bit of the plasticky smell of Eros. I don't remember what she puts in her room, but I know Havelock likes his room smelling like fresh bread, and Miller's ex-wife would have peace lilies. I believe it was peace lilies, which Miller thought smelled like a hospital. It's just a weird little thing that just not mentioned in the show. Might as well add it.
Fact. Just you. Not Havelock. He's too new.
You sidelining me, Cap?
No, this is off book on your own.
It's not because Havelock's new. It's because it's from Earth. Another thing that's often toned down in the show versus the books is the racism.
Captain Shadid's hard eyes softened, like she was putting on a mask. She smiled. Everything going well with your partner? Havelock's all right, Miller said. Having him around makes people like me better by contrast. That's nice. Her smile's only change was to become half a degree more genuine. Nothing like a little shared racism to build ties with the boss.
All the Belters hate the Earthers. He gets treated like shit. He gets put on shit jobs. He doesn't get let into places. He doesn't get information because he's an Earther. It's a shit deal. We all understand why with all the history of conflict between the two, but that's what it is here. I'm pausing it again. Just full of trivia at this point. Mal Kokowski. Again, it's not really the actual company is not really referenced much. But Jules Pierre Mal started making his money. I believe the company started because there was a bunch of lawsuits over some cities on Venus. I believe they were going to build some cities or some platforms, and they were going to have a huge thing there. There was loads of money involved, and it didn't go to plan, or it fell halfway or something. And Mal's company was the law firm involved in, I think it was a class action against this company or whoever was building this thing. And that's where his company started. They gained a crap ton of money from that. I think it was like a 10-year legal battle. And then he went into shipping. And from there it grew to, I believe it's like a top 50 company in the solar system at this point. So it's a many $trillion business.
Went to college, got involved with a group called the Far Horizons Foundation.
Students. Kidnap job. My pleasure.
Oh wait, I love this song. Painful. Ugh. So I believe his name's Patch. This guy here who's getting absolutely fucked by the ice. He loses his arm in the books. This happens about a month before the start of the show. So yeah, this is it's interesting that they changed this up. His arm actually gets crushed by a giant piece of ice, just the same, but it's only moving 5 millimeters a second. So this thing is obviously moving much faster. He just got crushed slowly, and obviously his arm wasn't enough to stop the pressure of this like giant thing coming at it. So I assume it just crushed his arm off. Yeah, but that's where he lost it. About a month before the show happened. I know they jumped to like his medical scene where they've been keeping his. I believe they were keeping his necrosis down by using leeches. I think it was leeches or maggots. Something was eating the dead flesh. I believe probably maggots there. So yeah, it's just weird that he was still he was out of action about a month ago, and he's just big chilling with Shed in the meantime. The main rant I wanted to stop at here is Ade. Okay, I don't know whether maybe I'm just a weirdo for being triggered at this. I don't know why they race changed Ade. I don't understand at all. She's supposed to be like a 6'2" Nigerian woman, with a thick accent, and I don't know why you'd race change there. I assume probably that they didn't want to see Holden like, oh, he's with a black girl, now he's with a brown girl, and like, oh, maybe I don't know. I really am not sure at all why they changed her race. It seems like they were trying to say like Holden doesn't have a fetish or something, which, hey, you can have your type, God bless, but this is probably one of the changes that matters least, but annoys me closer to the highest. Because it's just, I don't see the point in like why they changed this at all, but hey, is what it is.
You should have is that new biogel they developed on the inner planets. Then you wouldn't need a prosthetic. It regrows the limb perfectly.
Screw the inners in their magic.
Fuck the inners and their magic jello.
No offense, Holden. No, I'd rather a Belter-built fake any day.
Stubborn as hell.
No worries, Bash. Hey, I need some Z, bro.
Been cleaned after too.
I love this scene. The whole patch part is almost word for word taken from the books. That's just very Belter. Fuck the inners. Fuck whatever they've got. I'd rather have a Belter build shit one any day of the week. It's about as Belter as it gets there. There's actually a little bit more to that scene in the books that I find hilarious.
Tell him the other bit, Padge said with a wicked grin. Shed blushed. I've heard from other guys who've gotten them, Shed said, not meeting Holden's eyes. Apparently there's a period while you're still building identification with the prosthetic when whacking off feels just like getting a hand job. Holden let the comment hang in the air for a second while Shed's ears turned crimson. Good to know.
Also, while we're paused here, Holden was the XO. I love Mike from Breaking Bad as much as the next of us. Character didn't exist. Holden was already the XO, and none of that part of the drama happened.
Nope, Sasa.
Just follow the Rika whiskey. That's not nice.
It's the truth. Naomi says it'll happen. You take it to the bank.
Listen, kids, I've been here longer than you. It's way too...
I love Amos. I love Amos and Naomi's relationship. Love it completely. Amos is probably, I'd love to say he's my favorite character, but I have a mommy who's just the best character ever to me. But Amos is a very tight second. If she wasn't my favorite swearing sailor, I don't know what I'd do without that woman. I think she's my favorite character. But Amos is very, very close. Yeah. I know in the books, Amos calls Naomi boss almost always.
Hey, boss! Amos Burton, Naomi's Earthborn assistant, yelled from across the bay. He waved one meaty arm in their general direction. He meant Naomi. Amos might be on Captain McDowell's ship, Holden might be executive officer, but in Amos Burton's world, only Naomi was boss.
We're obligated to check it out.
I'm well aware of the statute, Miss Nygaard.
Important time to mention that statute. Yeah, it's probably easier to just give a Holden quote straight from the books, but yes, you are obligated to answer all of those calls for the same reason we have these rules for ships now. When you're out in the middle of nowhere, everyone kind of has to agree to help a person who's putting out a distress signal, otherwise kind of everyone's just fucked. Yeah, it's kind of an important thing, but I'll...
The law of the solar system was unequivocal. In an environment as hostile to life as space, the aid and goodwill of your fellow humans wasn't optional. The emergency signal, just by existing, obligated the nearest ship to stop and render aid, which didn't mean the law was universally followed.
Pirate Bay.
My memory serves me. They went straight to the beacon. That they never purged it. Holden never had to do his secret uploading of the file. None of that stuff happened. They just went to it because they're kind of obligated to do so. But yeah, what's interesting to me is a little like fight back and forth between the XO and the captain. In the books, it plays out a little bit different. I'm just gonna...
The emergency signal, just by existing, obligated the nearest ship to stop and render aid, which didn't mean the law was universally followed. The Canterbury was fully loaded. Well over 1 million tons of ice had been gently accelerated for the past month. Just like the little glacier that had crushed Padge's arm, it was going to be hard to slow down. The temptation to have an unexplained calm failure, erase the logs, and let the great god Darwin have his way, was always there. But if McDowell had really intended that, he wouldn't have called Holden up, or made the suggestion where the crew could hear him. Holden understood the dance. The captain was going to be the one who would have blown it off, except for Holden. The grunts would respect the captain for not wanting to cut into the ship's profit. They'd respect Holden for insisting that they follow the rule. No matter what happened, the captain and Holden would both be hated for what they were required by law and mere human decency to do.
Put in a quote from the audiobooks to solve it. But yeah, they've both got their own kind of roles to play here. The captain's kind of got to say some things, and the XO's kind of got to say some things, and they both kind of do it on purpose so that they get the job done. But so neither of them really takes the blame from the crew for it. Anyway, I'll let Holden explain it, because better than me. Yeah, so they went straight to it, and yeah, it was Holden's job to kind of force the captain into listening to the stress beacon, because you kind of have to.
Slow it down a little bit.
Quick pause. The Canterbury, I think it's 3/4 of a kilometer long. Scale is a bitch in this show. It's almost impossible for them to show the scale of anything, or like the speed of anything, because it's a fucking nightmare. I believe at this point they'd been accelerating for like 20 days, so all these journeys are really long. And if anyone knows how the show works, essentially what they'll do is they'll accelerate up for half the distance. They just keep accelerating for half of the distance they have to get there, or a bit more, and then at some point they'll flip and burn and slow down while still heading in that direction. But yeah, it makes it a nightmare to to change direction or slow it down or to go anywhere. It causes a lot of issues which play out.
Me up on that distress call.
McDowell's got a nose for trouble. He's been doing this a while longer than we have.
Guess you really are sucking up for that XO badge.
Turn him down flat.
Kidding me? You'd be on the short path to captain.
Exactly. Besides, if I took it, we'd have to stop seeing each other.
Well, you know, there's that saying about all good things. I told you, a couple more rotations and I'd be moving on.
Couple. You know, 2 at least, I assumed.
Hey,
Holden's catching feelings.
why worry about later, right?
Right.
I'm gonna pause it here because Stephen Strait, sexy. We'll leave him on. Yeah, so this audio relationship has very much changed from the books. They were kind of flirting and not dating at all. They were just kind of friends with benefits, and he was trying to get her, in his mind at least, he was trying to get her to come over for dinner at some point just here, and she was like, no, I'm not really up for sex. And he's like, no, I don't really mean sex, I mean dinner. He's like trying to start a relationship, and she's really grumpy, and it doesn't really start, but they plan it for the next day or something, which never ends up happening because of, yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to me the changes they made for Holden. Holden, in the show, in the books at least, before this point or at this point was very much like a ladies man or a player or something, where there were quite a few girls that would like rotate, or women would rotate through the ship over each trip they do, and he would kind of cuddle up to them for a couple months and then kind of fling them away, or less time, and he was kind of going through that all. It's not really relevant so much for the show, except for how it relates to Naomi, which is a huge change, but that's for a later point. The smackheads outside have left us. We'll continue back to the show with a bit more tea. Love her to bits. The character, my favorite. The actress, oh, does she play it perfectly. Oh, the casting in this show, generally, 99 out of 100 characters are all casted perfectly, even too perfectly for some people. Absalala and drummer slash bull slash I forget the name of the third one who dies in the books, but all the characters that that got melded together to make up Kara G's character, these actresses were too good. They were so good that they justified changing the whole story around them, because they're so good. What can I say? This is one of those weird points where, even as a book person, where I loved Bull in season 3 or book 3. Loved the character. He got absolutely deleted to become part of Drummer, and it's fine, because it's not fine. It is fine, but I can understand it just because they're so great at what they do and they play it so perfectly that fuck it, change it. Like, they're good enough to do it. They're good enough to justify it. Her voice, 10 out of 10. She is drop dead gorgeous. Every one of her outfits, this woman is, I don't know. If I ever met her, I would just sit there. I'd be like fangirling, like a 14-year-old boy who meets Katy Perry 5 years ago for the first time. I'd just be sitting there like... Anyway. While I'm on it, also, her character doesn't exist in the first book at all. Her character is quite weird in the show versus the books. There's a lot of stuff that gets taken away from her and a lot of stuff added. It's just kind of a big change. She's one of the characters that gets changed the most. A lot of characters do, just because they're not in every season or they're not in every book. And so you kind of have to keep actors going. You have to keep actors kind of in work. Otherwise they find other projects and they're not able to come back. Like her husband in this, who plays Baloo from the Jungle Book, he couldn't come back and he gets replaced eventually. And like, yeah, there's so many, it happens, and it's a struggle of a show. This is one of those places where it's kind of hard to make a 9-season plus show with a bunch of main characters who don't exist for large portions. So hey.
He'll wet himself if you're not careful.
That's the advantage of being a grandparent. I get to hand him off to his mother.
Fragile belts her bones. Her bees are...
What to do to make it stop his talk?
Madina Exchange District. Madina 交易区，现已到达。
Interesting little part to pause here. I know you hear Mandarin and you hear Hindi in the background. Very common languages out in space. Large populations that went out and put it there. Yeah, it's just interesting to see. And then words like Medina, which is an Arabic word. It's lovely to see how all these cultures kind of mix together in this little melting pot that is series. It's really cool. Yeah. This part again, basically all of Miller and Havelock's story, completely made up from the books. I forget her name, the character. She doesn't exist. She just seems to be, I don't know what her goal is essentially in the service, or whose role she's supposed to fill. She kind of plays like the connection of Miller's ex-wife, because she's like an old relationship, but Miller and his ex-wife do not get along anymore. Miller is not the easiest to get along with. Yeah, so it's an interesting story. None of it happened in the books, but you know, you've got to make your series story. I don't think Book Miller or even Miller would ever take a bribe for the air filters, though. That doesn't sound like a Belter thing to do. Like, it is rammed into you from every belter that ever speaks that the air and the water and their environment in these places is incredibly important to them. More than Earthers or Martians ever think about it. They are constantly thinking about this system that's keeping them alive. And they are very, very respectful of it. And I can't imagine a belter, or I can imagine maybe some belters, but I can't imagine Miller ever taking a bribe to not have air filters replaced. That's like a crazy change that I don't think any belter would ever accept. So yeah.
When I was homicide, Miller said, there was this guy, property management specialist working a contract out of Luna. Someone burned half his skin off and dropped him out an airlock. Turned out he was responsible for maintenance on 60 holes up on level 30. Lousy neighborhood. He'd been cutting corners. Hadn't replaced the air filters in 3 months. There was mold growing in 3 of the units. And you know what we found after that? What? Havelock asked. Not a goddamn thing. Because we stopped looking. Some people need to die, and he was one. And the next guy that took the job cleaned the ducting and swapped the filters on schedule. That's what it's like in the belt. Anyone who came out here and didn't put environmental systems above everything else died young. All us still out here are the ones that cared.
Holden, you'll head up this rescue or salvage, whatever we're calling it. Put a shuttle team together.
Prepare for flip and burn.
This is absolutely beautiful. It doesn't do it justice at all, but oh, look at that shot, the way it rotates, and it just... You gotta think, they've been accelerating in one direction for like 20 days at this point. So they're traveling very fast, if not they're not accelerating at this point, they're traveling very fast. And here comes the juice. Don't think the juice is ever explained in the show, at least not to my memory. It is a bunch of things. Essentially, the biggest threat to their lives, I think, during during those high burns, is strokes and clots. I believe the juice is a mixture of, it's like a methamphetamine or some amphetamine to keep everyone like going, because you've got to be like juiced up and sitting through this for a day or two, or like some crazy numbers sometimes. And then it's like some some blood thinners and some other stuff to keep them alive. But yeah, just the meth is I think only ever obvious when you get to see Alex jump in the ship, jump in the row seat for the first time, and it wakes him up. Yeah, it's not actually meth. It's like an amphetamine and some other stuff, but it's just never mentioned, so I thought I would. It does not look yummy, though. It's good. I'm very needle phobic, so. Ugh.
If your girlfriend logged that distress call, she's gonna be living it down for a long time.
Again, in the books, there was no logging of the call. They just went and did it. So this whole drama plot point that exists throughout quite a bit of the show doesn't exist in the books at all.
Just couldn't shake it.
I'd keep that to myself if I were you.
What's the good word, y'all?
There he is.
Oh, sweet old rust bucket today.
Little note. Holden didn't want Alex to fly the ship. Holden wanted someone else. I don't know the quote. Maybe I'll put it in. Bam.
We got a pilot yet? She asked. Alex Kamal is on the ready rotation today, so he's our man. I kind of wish Valka had been up. He's not the pilot Alex is, but he's quieter and my head hurts. I like Alex. He's ebullient, Naomi said. I don't know what ebullient means, but if it means Alex, it makes me tired.
It was something like Holden just doesn't like how Alex never stops talking. That's all. And we love Alex, but he is a bit of a talker. And
I don't want to be here right now.
Me neither. But here
it's very shed.
One big happy unit.
Famous.
2-hour trip to the Tango Flying Tea Kettle.
Thank you, Canterbury.
Welcome, Knight. Godspeed.
So, Tea Kettle. it's only, I think, I don't even think how it's too, wow, words. I don't think it's referenced too often, but tea kettle is the old rocket system, I guess you'd call it, maybe, that they used to use before the Epstein drive was invented. It's very fuel inefficient. It uses these big fuel pellets that it goes through quite a lot, so it's just not used at all. The distance is too short to use the Epstein drive, so they fly tea kettle instead, which is, again, much slower, much less. It may not be slower actually, but it's much less fuel efficient, which means that, you know, they can't keep going as long as possible. Don't think either of them existed in the books at all. And Miller actually had another partner, because Havelock leaves series long before Miller does in the show. Havelock leaves to go join Protogen, actually, which is actually a very important thing, because Havelock comes back a couple of times in the books. He is very important in the first book, and he is very important for reasons later, in regards to Ruin Station, Thoth Station? It's Thoth Station, sorry. And he is very relevant in book 4. He is one of the main characters in book 4, or season 4 at least, in which obviously he never comes back at all. But he was a big part of the RCE in space part of the show, or the books, but he never comes back after he gets shanked, really.
She's off the clock.
Then she can tell me that.
Amos asks Holden if he can get the keys and take a gun. Holden didn't think of it, but he is very happy that Amos asked him if he could take a gun, because while he's scared, he doesn't want to put that across.
Boys and girls, we found something weird and we're out of here.
Engineering first. Cut out the data core, we'll take it with us.
He's not exactly like the
These panels are all dead. How are they sending a distress beacon with dead comms? Does that look like a... Well, maybe not. If it was a bomb, we'd be toast.
I love this scene. Very much Amos to just pull it anyway. Holden was one who spotted it first in the books. And he's like, yo, is that a bomb? And Amos doesn't hear him because he had his microphone off. He's like, Amos, is that a bomb? Amos stares at it for a second and he grabs it just the same. And he's like, ah, fuck it. If it was a bomb, we'd probably already be dead. And Holden says something like, oh, I guess the only reason to do this then would be so that you could ping when someone picks up the beacon. Obviously it's a fake beacon. When all the comms are dead in the ship, it's just connecting to the transmitter.
Beam from the Canterbury.
Holden?
Also important, Holden, as soon as they saw that thing and they picked it up, he said, I've seen something weird, it's time to head back. He shortly after receives this message from Captain Dowell, but he was already going to head on his way back as soon as he saw that thing. He knew that was sus enough. Get the fuck out.
Ship just appeared near your location.
How is that possible? You cleared us out to 1 million clicks.
It's a cute kid.
How old?
2.5.
Hi.
How about you? Any kids?
Yeah, no. I miss that boat.
I like the scene. Plays out almost word for word. I hate trains. Plays out almost word for word the same as in the book. However, this takes place in a tube train, I believe, in like their little tube system. And Miller's kind of playing with this girl, and then they kind of talk, the dads talk, or I say the dads, Miller isn't a dad. The two guys talk, and they make a bit of jokes. And he's like, oh yeah, I think Miller's response to 2.5 years old was, I've got a divorce about that age. And they both kind of giggle together, and then they split ways. Obviously, was never married in the show, so that's probably why it was changed.
Detective, an arrangement. You can't just. It was a mistake.
Doesn't happen in the books. Very much a Miller thing to do. He wouldn't have taken that initial bribe he happily would have shot somebody for fucking with the air or the water, or pushed him out an airlock. I think that's very much Miller's style, but I don't think Miller would have ever taken that bribe.
Negative. Unable.
Advise.
Bogey is 12,000 clicks and closing.
Hold and advise.
Torpedo launch. We're gonna take him for a ride. Alex, go around the asteroid. Run him now. Lead the torpedoes into the rock.
What is your situation?
Okay, important place to stop here. This particular section of the episode, very shortened down. I think it was 8 or 9 minutes from when the torpedoes were launched to hitting the Canterbury. That's how much time they had, and it was going to take Holden and crew about another hour to get to the Canterbury. So they assumed they'd get there after the Canterbury gets hit, and they'd be involved in the negotiations with the pirates for the crew or for the cargo or for whatever else would happen. They assumed that, you know, they'd hit the drive and they'd hit their comm array, and then they'd just leave them there kind of stranded and then bored, and you take the loot and all those kind of things. So the plan, that's what they assumed was going to happen. Obviously, they had a lot more time in the books between the firing and the shooting, so there was a lot more conversation. Specifically, the part about running the missiles into the asteroid. I think that was Naomi's idea. Naomi came up with some idea, or someone on the Canterbury did, where they would use a fake laser, like a laser on the night, and they would pretend to release the same signal as the Canterbury in order to get the missiles to go for them, and then they'd lead them around the asteroid or something. Holden says no chance of that working. As soon as they fire, they also take a picture of the thing they're firing at, and it's also looking for the cross section to be correct. Otherwise, it's going to chase a random thing with just the same bit of data. There's a great quote there where they've got like 8 minutes, and everyone's trying to come up with the craziest ideas, like trying to save everyone in the Canterbury. And Holden's got a little line that kind of just kills it all, and basically just says, "No, you're dead. None of us can do anything about it. Or you're going to get hit. None of us can do anything about it." I'll put that in.
Won't work, Holden said with a sigh. They follow the targeting laser scatter for general guidance, but they also take telescope shots of the target on acquisition. They'll take one look at us and know we aren't their target. Isn't it worth a shot? Even if we manage it, torpedoes designed to disable the Cant would make us into a greasy stretch of vacuum. All right, Naomi said. What else have we got? Nothing. Very smart boys in the naval labs have already thought of everything we're going to think of in the next 8 minutes, Holden said. Saying it out loud meant admitting it to himself.
But rip. F. Remember the Cant.
Situation. Please advise.
Take a hit. Just stay calm. They just want the cargo. We'll SOS start negotiations for prisoner release, okay? Just...
There is a reference to the pirate part. Yep. It's a crazy explosion. Ade never says there's something you need to know. Weird line. I don't know why they put it in. I've seen so many people watch it and go like, oh, was she pregnant? Oh, was she cheating? Oh, was she... I don't know what it's in reference to at all. But however, what is interesting is when the Canterbury does get hit, it knocks out all the sensors on the night. They don't know what's happened to the night. No one can see it. They have to reset everything. Alex assumes it's been nuked. And everyone's shocked. No one knows what's happening. They finally get their sensors back up a minute later after a reset. And there's just like a cloud of superheated gas where the Canterbury used to be. Poof. Remember the Cant.
She's gone.
Holden never cared this much about Ade. I don't think he ever said her name again. Maybe she does.
They nuked her.
To my knowledge, he never mentions Ade after all of this. He doesn't really care that as much as he does in the show, at least. I mean, even in the show, I don't think he ever mentions Ade's name again after this episode either. Oh, actually, no, I think there's a flashback at some point, but anyway. Well, that's the end of the first episode. I have no idea how that's going to come across. I have no idea how my audio is, or the volumes, or anything like that. No idea how I'm going to get those little quotes from the audiobook in as well. I may put one more in at the end. If I've skipped any like bangers in there that I've forgotten about, I'll probably put them in the end. But yeah, holy shit. This is 2 hours now of filming. I don't know what I'm gonna be able to edit it down to, but yeah, it's kind of enjoyable. If there are any comments, let me know what works, what doesn't work, how to make it better, how to, you know, how things go. Just give me the comments in the comments about the comments, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys soon. I plan to do this through the whole show. I'd also like to do this with Harry Potter, because I absolutely heckin' love Harry Potter, and they did not do my boys justice in those movies. It is another perfect example of like 10 out of 10, but when you compare it to the books, which is how I feel about The Expanse too. Remember the cant. God save our queen, Avasarala. Big Mummy, hope you live forever, my queen. And I'll see you guys in the next